The music was still playing when I walked in, but nobody was listening to it anymore. Every head turned. Every conversation died. Glasses froze halfway to lips. Someone actually knocked over their drink and didn't bother looking down. Is that Joyce? She looks completely different. No way, that's her. I kept walking, chin up, heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. And in the far corner, right where I knew they'd be standing, was Nicole, my ex. The man I'd given 3 years of my life to. And beside him, pressed close enough that there was no mistaking what they were to each other, was Kim Lizzie, my best friend since secondary school. They came here tonight to break me. They had no idea I had already broken and rebuilt myself into something they couldn't touch. Nicole's jaw was tight. He was staring at me the way a man stares when he realizes, too late, that he let go of something irreplaceable. Kim Lizzie's smile had curdled. Her eyes swept over me once, twice, and what came back in them wasn't happiness for me. It was jealousy. And then the doors behind me opened again. Kang Gan Jai walked in. You want to talk about a room changing? The temperature dropped. People moved without realizing they were moving. The most dangerous man in the city crossed that floor like he owned every inch of it, because honestly, he probably did. And when he reached me, he cupped my face, tilted it up, and kissed me like we were the only two people alive. Someone dropped a glass. Nicole took a full step forward and stopped himself. His hands were shaking. Kim Lizzie looked like she was going to be sick. And me, for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt powerful. Completely, fully, terrifyingly powerful. You want to know how I got from sobbing on the floor of my apartment to standing in that ballroom like a queen that owned the place? Then stay with me. Because this story, my story, is one you need to hear from the beginning. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, smash that like, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. You're going to want to be part of this community before this story is over. Trust me. The sound stopped me before my mind caught up with what it meant. I was standing in the hallway outside Nicole's bedroom, hand raised to knock when I heard it. A woman's voice, breathless, unmistakable. My hand froze in the air. My chest went cold. No, not that. Anything but that. But then Nicole's voice followed, low and satisfied, and something inside me cracked clean down the middle. I should have walked away. I should have turned around, gone home, pretended I hadn't heard anything. But my hand was already on the door handle, and some broken, stubborn part of me needed to know for certain. I pushed the door open just enough to see Nicole's back. A woman's hands on his shoulders, red nails, nails I recognized because I'd sat beside her at the salon 3 weeks ago while she picked that exact color. Her head thrown back, her face turned toward me without knowing I was there. Kim Lizzie, my best friend, the person I'd called when my mother died. The person I'd lent money to without question. The person I'd trusted completely without reservation for years. The bile that rose in my throat tasted like every kind word I'd ever said about both of them. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I just stood there, stupid and hollow, while the world I thought I had dissolved around me. I can't wait for next week. Kim Lizzie's voice was soft, satisfied. Are you really going to end it with her on her birthday? Nicole laughed. He laughed. Obviously, I'm done. Joyce is so boring, Lizzie, and honestly, she's not even that pretty. I don't know what I was thinking for 3 years. You were thinking about her money, Kim Lizzie said. All those loans she took out, she handed it over like it was nothing. God, she's so pathetic, Nicole finished for her. Pathetic and plain, not like you. I don't know when I backed away from the door. I don't know how I made it down the stairs, out into the street, into the cold soul night air. One moment I was standing in that hallway with my hand on the doorframe, and the next I was outside, gasping like something had punched through my ribs. Pathetic, plain, 3 years. 3 years of extra shifts and skipped meals and loans I couldn't afford, also I could take care of them. And that was what I was to them. A punchline, a wallet with legs. By the time I got back to my apartment, my tiny, threadbare, barely affordable apartment that I'd sacrificed so much just to keep, the tears had already started. I didn't even try to stop them. I collapsed on my couch and cried until my throat was raw, until my eyes had swollen nearly shut, until there was nothing left to come out. Then I lay there in the dark and stared at the ceiling. How long had I been so blind? The next 3 days, I didn't leave the apartment. I called in sick to work, something I never did, and barely made it out of bed to eat. My phone buzzed constantly with Nicole's texts, with Kim Lizzie's voice notes. Both of them performing concern so convincingly I would have believed them a week ago. Joyce, where are you? I'm worried. Sister, please pick up. Are you okay? I responded to every message with the same tired lie, just not feeling well, need to rest, and they sent back hearts and reassurances. But neither of them came. Neither showed up at my door, because they didn't care. They never had. I was useful, not loved. There's a difference, and I'd been too desperate to see it. On the fourth morning, I dragged myself to the bathroom mirror and made myself look. The woman looking back at me was someone I barely recognized, and not in a good way. Hollow-eyed, gray-faced, like something that had been slowly drained over years and had finally run out. I'd been so busy pouring myself into everyone else that there was nothing left of me for me, boring and plain. Nicole's voice again, replaying on a loop. Maybe that was what I'd become. Because somewhere along the way, I'd stopped buying myself anything, stopped doing anything that was just for me. My hair was always in the same afro. My clothes were practical and forgettable. I didn't wear makeup because I told myself I couldn't afford it, but the truth was I'd been spending that money on them. No more, I showered, put on the nicest thing I owned, and I went out. I needed one night where I didn't feel the weight of what I now knew. Just one night of noise and music and forgetting, even temporarily, that the two people I'd trusted most in this world had been laughing at me behind my back. The club I chose was in Gangnam, somewhere I'd never gone because it had always felt like too much, too expensive, too far from my careful, responsible life. But what did careful and responsible get me? Debt and betrayal and a couch I'd cried myself dry on. What was one more reckless decision? I drank too much. I knew I was drinking too much, and I kept going anyway because every drink put a little more distance between me and the sound of Nicole's laugh in that bedroom. The music was too loud. The lights were too bright. I didn't care about any of it. By my fifth drink, the room had started to tilt. When I got up to find the bathroom, the hallway seemed to stretch in front of me, doors multiplying and shifting. I reached for what I thought was the right door, pushed it open, stumbled inside. The room was dark. I took one step and my legs decided they were done. Strong hands caught me before I hit the ground. Expensive cologne. Warmth. A broad chest that I fell against without any grace whatsoever. "Help," I whispered, which was possibly the most embarrassing thing I'd ever said. But instead of pushing me away, whoever was holding me held tighter. And I don't know if it was the alcohol or the exhaustion or simply the fact that someone was being gentle with me at a moment when I'd been ripped apart, but everything came pouring out of me. The cheating, Kim Lizzie, the loans, 3 years of being used by people who thought I was pathetic. I told this stranger everything, every last humiliating detail, sobbing into a shirt that probably cost more than I made in a month. He didn't say a word. He just held me. "SHH," he said at last, quietly. "I've got you." That was the last thing I remembered before everything went dark. I woke up to sunlight through floor-to-ceiling windows and sheets softer than anything I'd ever slept in. For about 4 seconds, I thought maybe everything had been a nightmare. Then I turned my head and my heart stopped completely. The man sleeping beside me was, there's no other word for it, beautiful in a way that was almost aggressive about it. Sharp jaw. Dark hair falling across his forehead. But it wasn't his face that made my blood turn to ice. It was the tattoo at his collar. A dragon rendered in extraordinary detail. I'd seen that symbol before. Everyone in Seoul had Lee Young-jae's family. The most dangerous name in the city's underground. Oh God. Oh God, oh God, oh God, I had to get out. I moved so carefully, inching toward the edge of the bed, 1 centimeter at a time, barely breathing. Leaving already? His voice was sleep-rough and thoroughly amused. I froze. He was watching me with dark, very awake eyes, and I had the distinct impression he'd been watching me for a while. "I'm so sorry," I said, clutching the sheets. "I got lost and I was drunk and I didn't mean to. Don't go." He sat up in one easy motion. "Please," he said please. This man whose name made people move to the other side of the street, was saying please to me. I should really, at least eat something first. He reached over and pressed a button on the nightstand. "Did you last eat?" My stomach answered for me. Loudly, something shifted in his expression. Not amusement exactly, something softer. 20 minutes later, I was sitting up in his bed wearing one of his shirts, which fit me like a tent, while he personally set a tray across my lap with more food than I'd seen in days. I stared at it. "You don't have to do this," I said. "I know." He settled into the chair beside the bed. "You told me everything last night, about your ex, your best friend. What they said about you." Humiliation crawled up my neck. "I'm sorry, you didn't need to hear all of that. Joyce." He said my name simply, and something in his tone made me look up. "Stop apologizing. You were generous with people who weren't worth it. That's not something to be sorry for." I didn't know what to do with that. When was the last time someone had said something kind to me without wanting something in return? I can help you, he said. I can give you the means to make them understand exactly what they threw away, but only if that's what you want. The word revenge hung between us like smoke. Why would you help me? I asked. You don't know me. Something moved across his face, old pain, quickly controlled. Let's just say I understand betrayal on a personal level. My ex-girlfriend was with my closest friend for 6 months before I found out. A pause. I know what that particular kind of wound feels like. This powerful, feared, dangerous man had been broken by the people he loved, just like me. What would it look like? I asked quietly. This help you're offering. His expression sharpened. That depends on how far you want to take it. I thought about Nicole's voice, pathetic and plain. I thought about Kim Lizzie's laugh. I thought about every sacrifice I'd made, every meal I'd skipped, every loan I'd signed, all of it handed over freely to people who were mocking me with their hands out. Want them to feel it, I said. The way I felt it. He extended his hand. Then trust me. I looked at it for a long moment. This was insane. Making a deal with the most dangerous man in Seoul over a breakfast tray while wearing his oversized shirt was objectively, completely insane. I took his hand. Okay, I said. Let's do it. The 2 weeks that followed rewrote me from the outside in. Kang Gan-jai. And yes, by the second day I knew his real name, his full name, the name people in his world used, didn't do anything halfway. He took me to a salon where an entire team descended on me with the focused energy of people who took their work seriously. My hair, which had lived in the same ponytail for years, was cut and shaped and colored until it framed my face in a way I hadn't known was possible. A makeup artist sat across from me and taught me things I'd never known, showing me how to work with my face instead of ignoring it. But the salon was just the beginning. He took me to boutiques I'd walked past with my eyes forward, too aware of my own limitations to even slow down. He chose things for me with quiet certainty, elegant pieces, sophisticated silhouettes, clothes that made me look like someone who took up space on purpose. You were never plain, he told me one afternoon when I was standing in front of a mirror barely recognizing myself. You just stopped looking. Beyond the clothes and the hair, he worked on something harder to change, the way I held myself, the way I spoke, the habit I had of making myself smaller in rooms, of prefacing everything I said with an apology. Stop saying sorry, he'd remind me every time it slipped out. You have nothing to apologize for. In between the transformation sessions, I learned things about him that complicated the simple narrative I'd been constructing: dangerous man, useful arrangement, clean transaction. He'd grown up in an orphanage, had fought his way to power with nothing but intelligence and will, was respected and feared in equal measure by people who'd started with far more than he had. More similar than you think, he said one evening, the two of us sitting in his penthouse with souls spread out below us like a map of everything he'd built for himself. We both know what it means to have nothing, to work for every single thing you have. The difference is I stopped letting people take from me. Meanwhile, Nicole kept texting. Kim Lizzie kept calling. I answered every message with the same sweet, unsuspecting Joyce they were expecting. I even invited them both to my birthday party, telling them I wanted to celebrate with the people I loved most. Of course, babe, Nicole sent back with a string of heart emojis that made my skin crawl. Wouldn't miss it. Help you plan it, sister, Kim Lizzie responded. It's going to be so perfect. Perfect. Yes, it would be, just not the way they were imagining. As the days passed, something else was happening that I hadn't planned for. Kang Gan-jai and I really talked for hours. He made me laugh in ways I'd forgotten I was capable of. He listened when I spoke. He pushed back when he disagreed with me and was never condescending about it. And sometimes I'd catch him looking at me with an expression that I couldn't quite categorize, but that made my heart behave strangely. One evening, the night before my birthday, we were in his home theater pretending to watch a film that neither of us was paying attention to. I was very aware of how close he was, of the warmth he put off, of the fact that somewhere over the past 2 weeks, this had stopped feeling like an arrangement. Thank you, I said quietly. He turned toward me. For what specifically? For seeing me. When everyone else was looking right through me, you actually saw *me. Air between us shifted. He reached out slowly, deliberately, and tucked a strand of hair back from my face. His fingers stayed against my cheek. Joyce, he said, his voice low, you are worth seeing. I don't know which one of us moved first. Maybe we both did. But his lips were on mine, and I kissed him back with everything I had, all the grief and the rebuilding and the weeks of slowly becoming someone I recognized again. It was nothing like anything I'd experienced with Nicole. This was real. This was two people who had both been broken choosing each other anyway. When we finally pulled apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. "We should slow down," he whispered, though he didn't move away. "Don't want to slow down," I said. He looked at me, searching, careful, like he was making absolutely sure. "My world isn't simple, Joyce. It's complicated and it's dangerous, and I need you to be certain." I kissed him again instead of answering. That night changed everything. The ballroom Kang Ganjai had rented for my birthday was the kind of place I used to walk past and think, not for people like me. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, floral arrangements so extravagant they looked like something out of a magazine spread. A string quartet playing softly in the corner. Everything elegant and luminous and completely, achingly beautiful. Kang Ganjai asked, adjusting the lapel of his suit. He looked like he'd been assembled specifically to make people nervous. I smoothed my dress. Yellow fitted perfectly, chosen by a man who somehow understood my body better than I'd understood it myself. My makeup was flawless. My hairfell framed my face. The woman I saw reflected in the car window on the way here was someone I was still getting used to, not because she was unrecognizable, but because she looked the way I'd always suspected I could if I'd ever bothered to try. Joyce without apology. Joyce without debt. Joyce without any reason to shrink. "I'm ready," I said, and I meant every syllable. The plan was simple. I'd arrive late to my own party. Nicole and Kim Lizzie would already be there, probably standing close together, already rehearsing the scene they'd planned. The breakup speech Nicole had been building toward for weeks, the one he thought would catch me off guard, the one he thought I'd cry through in front of everyone. Instead, I was going to flip the whole table. Kang Ganjai pulled up to the venue and kept the car running. "I'll come in after." "This entrance, it belongs to you." I leaned across and kissed him once, drawing something steady from the warmth of him. "Thank you for everything you are." "Show them who you became," he said simply. I stepped out, checked my reflection one last time in my compact, and walked toward the doors. The doorman's expression shifted the moment he saw me. Good. That was the preview. When I walked into that ballroom, the music didn't stop, but it felt like it did. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. Glasses paused. Heads turned in a slow wave, one after another, the way a field bends when wind moves through it. People I'd worked beside for years, people who'd only ever seen me in practical clothes with my hair scraped back, were staring at me like I'd walked through the wrong doors. But I was watching Nicole. He was standing near the bar with Kim Lizzie. Both of them dressed nicely, both of them holding drinks, both of them looking like people who thought they'd already won. Then his gaze found me across the room, and I watched his face collapse. The drink in his hand tilted. He grabbed the bar edge to steady himself. Kim Lizzie's expression was slower to change, but when it did, it wasn't surprise. It was something sharper and more personal than that. She looked at me the way women look at someone they've secretly been measuring themselves against. I walked toward them the way Kang Ganjai had taught me, not rushed, not performing, just certain. Every click of my heels against that marble floor felt like punctuation. "Joyce," Nicole's voice had lost its usual confidence. "Is that you? Look." "Hello, Nicole," I said, calm, easy, like we were running into each other somewhere neutral. "Kim Lizzie, thank you both so much for coming." Kim Lizzie moved first, wrapping her arms around me in a hug that felt like a reflex. I let it happen and stepped back. "Sister, you look incredible," she said, and I could hear the effort underneath the warmth. "Where have you been? We've been so worried." "I found myself," I said, "and some other things while I was at it." Nicole's hand reached for mine. "Baby, I've missed you. You haven't been." I moved my hand before he could close his fingers around it. "Haven't been what? Answering your calls properly." "I answered everyone, Nicole, told you exactly where I was." First flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. "Can we talk?" he said, dropping his voice. "Somewhere private." "There are things I need to say to you." "Actually," I said, and let my own voice carry just a little further, "I think this is a conversation for right here, in front of everyone." I looked around the room at the faces now watching with unabashed attention. "What you came here to tell me tonight, you should say it out loud. Don't you think?" Nicole went pale. "Joyce, I don't know what you—" "You came here to break our engagement," I said. Not an accusation, a fact delivered flatly. "On my birthday." In front of my people. That was the plan, wasn't it? The gasps moved through the crowd like a current. Kim Lizzie's drink hand went very still. "Did you—" Nicole started. "I was there, Nicole." I let that land before I continued. 3 weeks ago, in the hallway outside your bedroom, I heard everything. I looked between the two of them. Both of your voices, both of your words, every single one. Color drained from Nicole's face so completely he looked gray. Kim Lizzie made a small sound, something between a breath and a word, and then nothing. I heard what you called me, I said. Boring, plain, pathetic. My voice stayed level. This was the part I'd practiced, not letting the old pain pull me under, not giving them the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. I heard you laugh about the loans I took out to help you both. I heard you plan this evening, down to the detail. And I decided that if tonight was going to be a performance, I should at least be prepared. Joyce, please, Nicole's voice cracked. He dropped to his knees on that marble floor right there in front of everyone, and a month ago that sight might have broken me open. Right now it just looked like what it was, a man who'd run out of moves. Please, I was confused. I made a mistake. She seduced me, I swear. I did not, Kim Lizzie said, her voice going sharp and loud before she could stop it. You came to me. You said Joyce was dull and you wanted something else. Don't you dare put this on me now. Oh, so now you're turning on each other, I said, watching them. How interesting. They both fell quiet. You deserve each other, I said, and I meant it without anger. You really do. Two people who are comfortable lying to someone who loves them, you'll understand each other perfectly. I looked at Nicole. You used me for 3 years, my money, my loyalty, my time. You built your life on mine and called me pathetic for letting you. I looked at Kim Lizzie. And you, my best friend, the person I sat with when I was grieving, the person I gave and gave and gave to without question. I let the silence hold for a moment. I hope it was worth it. Kim Lizzie started to cry, not quietly, the kind of crying that takes over your whole face. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry, Anai, I was jealous. You were always the good one, the reliable one, and I wanted. You wanted what I had, I said. So you took it, and now you're going to deal with what comes next. Ballroom doors opened behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know. The room told me the way the energy shifted, the way voices dropped to nothing, the way even the people who'd been murmuring went absolutely silent. And then I heard his footsteps, measured and unhurried, crossing the floor toward me. Kang Ganjai stopped at my side. His arms settled around my waist like it belonged there. Then he turned me toward him and kissed me, not a polite greeting, not a performance, but something real and claiming and completely unconcerned with the audience, and the room lost its mind quietly. Sorry I kept you waiting, he said, his eyes on mine. Your timing is perfect, I told him. He turned to look at Nicole and Kim Lizzie, both still on the floor, both starring, and his expression went to something cold and entirely impersonal. So these are the ones, he said. These are the ones, I confirmed. He reached into his jacket and produced an envelope. He set it at Nicole's feet without ceremony, the way you'd set down something you wanted off your hands. Those are debt transfer documents. Every loan Joyce took out for you, for your business, for your life, is now in both your names. You have 24 hours to sign them before my lawyers make this considerably more complicated. Nicole's hands were shaking when he tore the envelope open. I watched him read, watched his face move through disbelief, then panic, then a desperation he didn't bother hiding. You can't do this. This isn't legal. I assure you it is, Kang Ganjai said pleasantly. If you'd like to challenge it in court, I'll make sure my team is available whenever yours is ready. Kim Lizzie's crying had gone silent, which was somehow worse. She just sat on the floor looking at the document in Nicole's hands like it was a verdict. We can't pay this back, Nicole said. Joyce, please. We're talking about years of payments, we can't. You should have thought about that, I said, before you decided I was too pathetic to deserve honesty. Kang Ganjai produced a second set of papers. The vehicle Joyce helped purchase is now in her name. The jewelry and other assets she funded for Kim Lizzie also returned. Consider it compensation, which is honestly generous given the circumstances. You can't just take my things. Nicole was on his feet now, voice raised, hands balled at his sides. This is theft. I'll call the police. Please do. Kang Ganjai looked genuinely unbothered. I'll make sure someone mentions the tax discrepancies in your business filings while they're there. Or the other matter, the financial one your accountant has been very creatively managing on your behalf. I have documentation on both. Nicole's mouth closed. Sign the papers, I said quietly. Take what you've been given, which is far more grace than you showed me, and leave. Or push further and find out what it looks like when a man like Kang Ganjai decides to stop being lenient. They signed, both of them. Hands trembling, neither of them looking at me, they put their names on every page while the entire party watched. When the last pen went down, I nodded to the security position near the walls, Kang Ganjai's people who had been there since the guests arrived. "Show them out," I said. "They're done here." Nicole tried one final time. The guards had his arms and he was still talking, voice cracking, saying he loved me, saying we could fix it, saying, "Please, Joyce, please, asterisk, you never loved me," I said simply. Not with heat, not with satisfaction, just the truth stated clearly so we both could hear it. "You loved having me. There's a difference. I hope someday you figure out what that difference is because it'll cost you less in the long run." Doors closed behind them. For a moment, a long, suspended moment, the ballroom was completely still. Then Kang Ganjai lifted his glass. "Tonight," he said, his voice carrying easily through the room, "we celebrate a woman who just proved that the people who underestimate you are always the ones who regret it most." He looked at me. "Happy birthday, Joyce." The room erupted. Applause, cheers, people coming toward me from every direction, coworkers, acquaintances, people I'd barely spoken to in years who'd watched the whole thing unfold and wanted to be close to whatever energy was in the air. It felt like standing at the center of something warm after a very long time in the cold. But through all of it, my eyes kept finding their way back to Kang Ganjai. Eventually, I got free of the crowd and pulled him toward the balcony. The city opened up below us, Seoul at night, all light and movement and scale, the kind of view that made personal disasters feel appropriately small in proportion. He took off his jacket and draped it around my shoulders before I'd even registered the chill. I pulled it tighter and turned to face him. "Need to ask you something," I said. "Ask. What happens now, after tonight?" I held his gaze. Was this the end of the arrangement, or Joyce? He said my name the same way he always did, like it was something he meant. "This stopped being an arrangement weeks ago. For me." He paused. "I love you. I need you to know that plainly, without performance. I love your kindness and the stubbornness underneath it. I love how you see people clearly now without losing the part of you that wants to believe in them. I love the way you challenge me and the way you've made me want to be someone worth challenging." His jaw tightened slightly. "I know what I am. I know my world isn't simple. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but I love you and I'll spend as long as you'll let me proving that." Tears were there before I could stop them. "I love you too," I said. "It terrifies me a little." His hand came up to my face. "Then be terrified," he said softly, "and stay anyway." I leaned up and kissed him, there on the balcony above a city that had nearly crushed me, and something in me, something that had been clenched tight and waiting for the next blow, finally let go. What came after felt like waking up from a long sleep and discovering the world had color in it. Kang Ganjai courted me the way people court each other in stories you don't quite believe, dinner at places that required reservations months in advance, weekends in Jeju and Busan, slow mornings in his penthouse where nobody had anywhere to be. He introduced me to his world gradually, the legitimate architecture of his empire, and made it clear to everyone in it that I was not peripheral. I moved out of my tiny apartment. Not because he asked me to, not because I was trading one dependence for another, but because I'd gotten a better job by then, building on the confidence I'd spent 2 weeks rebuilding from scratch, and the penthouse was simply where we both were. For the first time in years, I was standing on my own 2 feet. And someone was standing beside asterisk me, not taking from me. We heard about Nicole and Kim Lizzie in fragments, the way you always hear about people you've left behind. Their relationship didn't survive the consequences. Apparently the warmth between them cooled considerably once there was no easy money to orbit around. Both of them were working multiple jobs to manage the debt now in their names. The social media fallout from my birthday party had followed them longer than either of them expected. I want to say I felt nothing hearing any of this, but that's not quite honest. What I felt was something quieter than satisfaction, a recognition that choices have weight, and that the weight had landed where it belonged. And then I let it go, because I had better things to tend to. 8 months after my birthday party, we were back at the same club where it all began. Not the same dark corner, not the same desperation. This time we were in a private section, just the 2 of us and a city that had become asterisk ors in the months between. Kang Ganjai got down on one knee. The ring he opened the box to show me was simple and extraordinary, a diamond that caught the light from every angle, set in a band with a dragon and wings intertwined. He'd had it designed. He told me that later, that he'd sat with a jeweler and described both of us and asked them to make something that held both. "Joyce," he said, and his voice was rough in the way it only got when something actually mattered to him. "You walked into my life when I'd stopped expecting to find anything real in it. You showed me that the things I'd written off as weaknesses, gentleness, trust, the willingness to love people fully, were never weaknesses at all. I want to spend the rest of my life next to you." He looked up at me. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said before he'd even finished the sentence. "Obviously yes, without question yes." Ring slid onto my finger like it had been waiting there. We married 2 months later. Small ceremony, people we actually loved, no performance. It was everything my birthday party wasn't, quiet and real and entirely ours. For our honeymoon, he took me to the Maldives. On our last night there, lying on a beach with stars overhead and the sound of water all around us, he told me he was working on pulling more of his operations into legitimate territory. "You make me want to build things that last," he said. "For us, for whatever comes next." I turned to look at him. "Whatever comes next," I repeated slowly. And then, because the moment felt like the right one, "What if what comes next is already on its way?" He went still. "I found out yesterday," I said. "I was going to wait for the right moment, and then I thought, this is it. This is the right moment." He sat up and looked at me for a long beat. Then his hand came to rest on my stomach, carefully, like he was afraid to disturb something precious. "Many?" he asked, his voice very quiet. "2," I said. "The doctor says twins." I'd never seen him undone before. Not like that, laughing and pulling me into his arms and pressing his face into my hair, his whole body shaking with something too big for the word joy to fully hold. The most feared man in Seoul, completely undone on a beach in the Maldives because I was having his children. "Given me everything," he said against my hair. "Everything I didn't think I was allowed to want. You gave it back to me first," I told him. Year and 3 months after the night, I walked into that bathroom drunk and heartbroken and let a stranger hold me while I fell apart. I stood in a nursery in Gangnam and looked at 2 sleeping bobbies, a boy and a girl. Both perfect. Both soft and new and entirely unaware of how much had to break before they could exist. Kang Ganjai came in behind me, arms wrapping around my waist, chin settling on my shoulder. We stood there together in the quiet, just breathing. "Do you ever think about them?" He asked eventually. "Nicole, Kim, Lizzie," I let the question sit for a moment. I knew what they were doing, roughly, still paying, still struggling, still living with the shape of what they'd chosen. Some days a small, old part of me almost felt something about that, but mostly, no, I said honestly. They made their choices, I made mine. This is what mine led to. He pressed a kiss to the side of my head. "Any regrets?" I looked at the 2 of them sleeping. Then I looked at the city through the window. Then I thought about the girl who'd cried alone on a threadbare couch, who'd believed she was pathetic and plain, who'd given everything and been left with nothing. She would not believe this room. She would not believe this life. "One," I said. "Not a single one. If you enjoyed this story, if you've ever given too much to the wrong people and needed to remember your worth, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I want to know. Your support means more than you know. See you in the next one.